Hello, it's time for another edition of the House Whisperer Show on WWDB Talk 860. I'm Barry Reisman, inviting you to stay tuned for expert advice about maintaining your house from the roof to the basement, featuring professional home inspector, the one and only Jack Milne. How you doing today, Jack?
Great, Barry. Man alive, is it good to see these flowers in bloom. I didn't think it was ever going to come this year.
Neither did I. I thought it was going to be snowing all summer.
You know, I always tell my clients, June's around the corner. By that time, it might be warm. And, before you know it, it is going to be June. So, but, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm starting to cut the lawn again and doing the edging. And, life has been renewed. So, but today, as everybody knows, the moral of our story and the motto is where every house has a story. And I wanted to do a show based on where do you want to live? And, it's such a simple question, but it has a lot of complex answers. Now, before you really sit down with your realtor, your significant other and yourself, either over a glass of wine or a nice dinner, should really, hammer it out, because there's so many choices right now and so many variables to think about before you tell your realtor, I want to move to here, I want to move to there. But before we kick in, I always want to thank my sponsors, because without them, I wouldn't be on the air. So, Burrow Exterminating, they do termite and radon testing. Again, if you're starting to see those little, they look like carpenter ants with wings, they could in fact be termites. So always grab up a couple to call Burrow, let them come out and evaluate your property, and if need be, have it treated. This is their time of year to show up. Bucksmont Inspections, I was working with Don the other day with a property up in Washington's Crossing, and what a true expert he is. They do on-site sewage evaluations. Their number is 215-669-4213. And before I forget, Burrow Exterminating is 610-586-5640. BrainFleshGear.com. I'm taking a trip literally in a couple of weeks, and I plan to pick up my gear very shortly from Kevin Zollner, who we had on the air a couple months ago. And I can't wait to see it. We worked months on this project, and it should be done. So literally brainfleshgear.com, or email them at contact@brainfleshgear.com. Pest blasters, radon, mold, wood-destroying insect evaluations, pest removal. They do it all, and they're very good at it. So if you need any assistance in any of these levels of professions, reach out to them at 215-295-5555. Finally, my company, Tri-County Inspection Company, with the spring market now in front of us, we've been performing anywhere between 40 and 50 inspections a week. I've got 5 great talented individuals and a great office staff that helps me through the process. This is why I can spend time on the radio. So our numbers are 215-295-2030. In the Delaware County area, 610-296-2004. If you're up there in the Lehigh Valley, we're up there too, 610-346-7880. And finally, South Jersey, 856-853-4224. So, quick visit to the email box. John heard the show about how to hire a contractor, and he said he took some notes, he laid out his priorities, made a few phone calls, got some referrals, and now his plans for a new deck is underway. So he wanted to thank me for the tips, and at the same time, I want to thank John for the email. So any questions, any topics, please email me at thehousewhisperershow@gmail.com, or for past shows with great ideas, please visit thehousewhisperershow.com. By the way, I did talk to my webmaster, and we're actually reversing the order of the shows from newest to oldest. So if things look a little bit different, that may be why. Now, new shows and new times beginning June 1st, which is actually a Sunday. The show is moving to 11 a.m., okay? So, as I like to say, wake up, smell and drink the coffee, read the paper, and put on the House Whisperer on at 11 a.m. And again, I can't thank WWDB and Barry, for the flexibility. I want to be the go-to guy for your real estate thoughts and decisions. So let's get down to it. where do you want to live? And again, it's a really hard decision, especially where you are with your time in life. Are you single? Are you married with young children? Do you have older children? Are you becoming empty nesters? And this question is quite profound, but it still deals with a lot of basic questions that need answers between your significant others. So let me help you through it. The first item I think of is work. Where do you work, and where does your significant other work? With sharing a common river between Pennsylvania and New Jersey, I meet many clients that one works in Philadelphia, the other works in Cherry Hill. So, do you want to live near the city? Do you want to live out near the burbs? Can you drive to work? Can you take the train? Or do you want to take public transportation? Do you want to walk to work, or even maybe bike to work? So this is a good question, and that's why I wanted to start off with it. And how long do you want to plan to get to work? I mean, are you thinking maybe a half hour or an hour and a half each way? So most people I find when they move are anywhere between a half hour to 45 minutes. But I can tell you, being on the roads constantly, day in and day out, the roads are challenging, to say the least. For example, I live in Yardley, and to go from Yardley to New York City takes about an hour and a half by train. And for a lot of people around here, that's very convenient because they go to Trenton, they hop on the train, and they're there fairly quickly. If they want to spend good money, they can take Amtrak and be there in an hour. But, talking to a lot of the commuters, knowing how busy that route is, you got to get up pretty early to get a seat. And again, this is a decision that you have to make. Here's something interesting. For me to get from Yardley to Fort Washington on the turnpike, it takes an hour. Now, we're only going 25 miles, but if anyone has spent any quality time on the turnpike, and there is no quality time on the turnpike,
That's for sure.
Everything slows down as you head west from the Route 1 entrance all the way out to Valley Forge. I mean, it does start picking up after the Norristown exit, but I always plan at least leaving an hour from my office to get to an inspection in Fort Washington. Willow Grove takes 35 to 40 minutes easily. So you have to give that some thought too. If I leave my home in Yardley to Center City by my car, it's an hour to an hour and a half. So by train, it's 45 minutes. So that's why I'm kind of leaning on public transportation for those of you who want to move out to the burbs. It might be a little bit easier and a little bit less hassle. If you live in Collegeville and you want to go to Center City, all I can say with that is good luck. Because 422 down to the Schuylkill, I couldn't even imagine that. So I think that's one of the first things you really have to think about. As a home inspector, everything for me is an hour or more to help a client. And if you look at our roads, think about it. 95 is under construction. The turnpike is a disaster. 476 north to Lansdale is we call it a cattle chute, and that's going to be worked on until 2017. Again, Doylestown for me is now an hour, where 10 years ago it was a half an hour. 295 south is a great alternative route that I really enjoy. But I stay off 130 because of the traffic lights. So to and from work should be a real decision before you decide where to choose to lay down your routes. And I think too many hours, human hours, are lost sitting in traffic, and unfortunately, it's only going to get worse. So again, look to trains, buses, carpooling to make that daily trek to the occupation that pays the mortgage, pays the taxes, pays the daycare, and any other obligation that we have. Next, I think on the priority list are schools. And I don't think there's anything more important as being parents, to send our offspring to the best schools we can, because at the end of the day, we always want our kids to succeed and do better than we did, and I think that's always a solid goal. And there are many choices today as parents that we can offer our children, We can do public, we can do private, we can do charter schools. There's even homeschooling available. And 90% of the time, our children outlive us. And as parents, we have to lay a solid foundation under our children's feet so they succeed emotionally and mentally, as well as spiritually. So they're ready to move forward in a world that, believe me, is going to be more challenging than it is for us today. So, Barry, if I may ask, why don't we break to a commercial, and then we're going to talk about living in the city versus living in the burbs.
All right. It's a good time to do that, and can't wait to hear part 2. You're listening to the House Whisperer Show. Jack Milne is here, and we'll take this quick break and be right back with more about where do you want to live right after this.
Boro Exterminating has been specializing in wood-destroying insect inspection and control for over 40 years, serving Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. All inspectors are state certified and ensure providing their clients with professional inspections and treatments. Boro not only performs conventional termite treatments, but also handles special services like historic buildings and homes with wells, creeks, or ponds. The client is assured that all treatments will be performed safely when you hire Boro to do the work. They also provide radon testing in their service area. Boro's full-time office staff is available to help you schedule an appointment. Just call 610-586-5640 or send an email request to boroinspects@verizon.net. That's 610-586-5640 or email at boroinspects@verizon.net.
Specially created t-shirts by BrainFlushGear.com offer the extreme sports enthusiast an opportunity to have a clothing line available that suits their sport. BrainFlushGear.com understands that when we get the moment where we can jump on our motorcycles, wave runners, surfboards, snowmobiles, or skateboards, it can be priceless. They offer custom artwork including silk screening, transfers, and embroidery. Speak to one of their consultants today and they'll help you create your own Brain Flush. Visit BrainFlushGear.com or email them at contact@BrainFlushGear.com.
For your septic inspection and testing needs, please consider Bucksmont Inspections. They've been serving the Bucks and Montgomery County areas for over 15 years. As members of the Pennsylvania Septic Management Association, the Pennsylvania Association of Sewage Enforcement Officers, and the Pennsylvania Association for Professional Soil Scientists, Bucksmont Inspections can inspect your existing septic system or test for your new septic system placement. Please call Rob Bowie at 215-669-4213 and say you heard their ad on the House Whisperer Show.
As the summer months quickly arrive and the temperatures gradually rise, so do the odds of all those filthy and unwanted critters invading your home like rodents, roaches, termites, and flies. Oh my! This summer, if you want to feel safe and secure from a possible creeping, crawling disaster, do yourself a favor and call the exterminating experts at Pest Blaster for all your pest control needs, including tests for radon and mold. Please visit pestblaster.com and you'll be sold. 215-295-5555.
Tri-County Inspection Company has been providing professional home inspections, commercial inspections, and historic property evaluations for over 25 years. Tri-County Inspection Company covers 13 counties, serving both New Jersey and Pennsylvania. They've performed inspections for over 70,000 clients and are members of the American Society of Home Inspectors, as well as the Pennsylvania Home Inspectors Coalition. They are licensed in both Philadelphia and New Jersey. For all of your real estate transactions, call Tri-County Inspections at 215-295-2030. For their New Jersey clientele, call 856-853-4224. In PA, call 215-295-2030. In New Jersey, 856-853-4224.
And we're back with Jack, the House Whisperer on WWDB. And great topic today, Jack. As always, where do you want to live? A lot of people don't give it as much thought as they should, and you're really giving some very good food for thought. So let's get back to Jack on the air.
Thank you, Barry. And by the way, all these shows are available on podcast, so if you do happen to miss me at the given time on Sunday, please reach out to www.dbam.com, and you can hear me anytime you want. I love that flexibility.
They can see it, too. We have your picture on there.
Well, if anyone wants to see what I look like. But anyway, we're talking about where do you want to live? It's such, a simple question, but the answers are very complex. So I figured this was a great time to kick back into the second segment, which is city versus the burbs. And each does have their benefits, but also they have their drawbacks. So let's start with the city. And I love Philadelphia. It's not New York, and I think that's the biggest reason why. The city offers so many different varieties of entertainment, of restaurants, of sports, and it's vibrant and alive every day. It's a great medium-sized city. It's a walkable city because everything with museums and theaters and restaurants are down the block. So as just marrieds or empty nesters or even single folks, there's always going to be something going on without the hassles and horns of, say, New York City. You could also potentially give up the car. As parking, is at a premium, sometimes you have to pay a separate condo fee for your car versus your condo fee for where you live upstairs. And, think back to the old days where we had a scooter or a bicycle. And, the city is truly encouraging that type of transportation, and they're providing slots, for that. I read recently Paul McCartney, before one of his concerts, actually did rent a bike and pedaled through the city. So kind of neat stuff that way. Public transportation is getting better. I still don't see a whole lot of taxi cabs, though, because, again, I spend a lot of time in the city, too. There's not a whole lot of taxis in Philadelphia. But, again, I talked about sports, and if you live here, Philly is a tough town on sports. We love them. They're not always winners, but, boy, we are brutally honest about how we feel, and we show it. And I think it takes a special person to live in the city. Either young or old, there's a lot to offer, but unless you enroll your children in private school, you will want to move to the burbs for your children's sake. And literally about 2 weeks ago, I did a young family who were living in Northeast Philly, and she was very frustrated with the public school system, and this was one of the reasons she was moving to the Ambler and Glenside and Orland area. She still hadn't decided where to move at that point, but her children were getting to get into first grade, and she wanted to make sure they were enrolled outside the school district and the Philly school district. And it is a shame. I mean, we pay our taxes for a reason, and I'm not sure where it all goes, but it's not going into the support that our Philadelphia schools really need. So hopefully they'll figure that out, but I think that for the young marrieds, they do stay in the Manayunks and the Northern Liberties and the Roxboroughs. I mean, there's some very exciting pieces of the city that really cater to the young people. But as soon as pregnancy arrives, I think people start to think about moving out. So the city has to do something to keep people in. But until that time, for the burbs, I mean, from Montgomery County, Bucks County, Chester County, Delaware County, and Pensy, and for Gloucester, Burlington, Mercer, Camden counties in New Jersey, you really have to figure out how you can have the best of both worlds. So you're going to have your work obligations, your family obligations, especially as you get married and have children. And one thing that, the baby boomers have to think about are aging parents. And, how are we going to juggle all these balls? So, just as we think we're becoming empty nesters and our kids have moved out, our parents are moving in. And then we're also thinking as we get older, because I'm a baby boomer, do we want a bedroom on the first floor? But if mom comes in or dad comes in, then maybe we have to actually give that room up for them because they may not be capable to climb the steps. And then we have to take, second fiddle as we can help out our parents. So there's a lot to think about. and the conveniences. And again, I think convenience plays a large role because there's some beautiful, beautiful places in Chester, Montgomery, Bucks County. I'm from that area that can take 15 to 20 minutes to get a loaf of bread. And those are the people that live in, as I call it, the boonies. So, sometimes you want to live near people. Sometimes you don't want to live near people. But when you don't live near people, all those little inconveniences become larger inconveniences. Filling up the car with gas, for example, and again, getting to work. So you have to lay out your priorities. There's a lot to offer in the burbs. In my eyes, family always comes first. Neighborhoods are where the kids can ride their bikes. They can play with other children their own age. Will you set roots in the soils of New Jersey and Pennsylvania for the next 10 to 15 years or more? Will you help establish strong neighborhoods, sports for the kids, be it baseball, soccer, lacrosse, or whatever? And, these strong bonds between parents, schools, and communities is what makes life fulfilling. And I had a dear friend of mine who bought a house up in north of New Hope, and he was so far out that his children almost had to be bussed to catch up with his friends. And they stayed, in the boonies for about a year and a half and actually moved back to civilization for the benefit and welfare of their children. So, again, where do you want to live? These are all good topics to think about before you sit down with your realtor. So this is the time, again, where personal priorities actually might have to take a back step to raise our children. Neighborhoods, friends, and parents, they all help us with this level of stability. And as you all know, our home becomes our base. When we buy, a home, a condo, a townhouse, it's not only shelter, but it's a place of compassion, endless discussions with family and friends, but also a place where we do our own work, because we're looking at home offices right now. The benefits of what I call home commuting, where you go downstairs in your pajamas, but you still wear a suit and a tie in front of the computer, has really taken off over the past several years. So I have a good friend that every Monday he works from his home, and then he goes into the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I think they're trying to do that to alleviate the traveling. So, if you have to buy a house with an office, or you're going to convert a bedroom, or you have to convert the basement, whatever it is, these are things that you have to delve into, again, before you talk with your realtor. But, I also think of a home as a place of refuge, a place where improvements are never done, because just as soon as you got done doing something, the significant other says, hey, how about if we do this now? But, you take a lot of pride in doing these things. And what I often laugh at is that when I meet clients, they say, I'm talking to the gentleman, and he goes, Jack, I felt like I just got my house done, and now my wife wants to move again. And, there's a lot to that. But there's nothing better than seeing, change and living through that change. And you know what? The change is what does make a house a home. And, and there's nothing really better than that. So time span, I think this is another thing that you have to give consideration to. How long do you plan to stay in one place? And I meet people from all walks of life, and I think that's what I truly enjoy about what I do. And, are you in the corporate lifestyle where you spend an average of 2 years in one place before you move again? I did an inspection for a client about 9 years ago, and she had me come out because she goes, Jack, I've never stayed in one place this long. So I have no idea as to life expectancies, what condition of this or condition of that is. So I want you to come back and actually teach me all over again as to, how long, we plan to stay. So that was my next question. What is your game plan? And she goes, Jack, I'd like to be here another 7 to 10 years. And that's how we worked with that client. So, again, back to the corporate style, this house has to keep you both close to work, but maybe also an airport, because commuting can be, on an airplane can be as important as commuting in a car. So, there's so much travel going on with the corporate world. Taxes, I think this plays a big role. New Jersey taxes, unfortunately, are higher than that in Pennsylvania. And I can tell you, as a Pennsylvania resident, I know I don't get much for my tax money. So, if you're an empty nester now and you're living in one of the larger school districts, unfortunately, you do not get a tax break, even though you're not putting children through that public school system. So you might have to move out a little bit further and get into one of the smaller school districts to lower your taxes. And I can't tell you how many people are moving from Pennsylvania from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, just because of the tax base in New Jersey, unfortunately, being so high.
Yeah, you're talking to me now. Cherry Hill is where I live.
Oh, Barry, they got to be incredible.
Don't even talk about it.
And I meet a lot of sports figures with what I do, and they're moving out of New Jersey because New Jersey changed their tax structure for professional athletes. So they're banging them for more bucks. So they're moving across the river back to Pennsylvania. And I think that's one of the benefits and detriments of sharing a river that we can actually walk across. There's a variety, and such variety, within both states. So, again, I think you have to give that serious consideration, and especially if you work in Center City or if you live or you plan to work in Wilmington. Well, the one thing that we all have is the benefit of choice, and choice does allow flexibility. And with some, time is on their side. Others, have taken the time, and now it's their turn again. So all I can ask is choose wisely and enjoy, because at the end of the day, it is your home.
With all the taxes that go with it. Jack, always good talking to you.
Well, thank you, Barry. And again, as I always like to say at the end of our shows, please spend time with family and friends. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the House Whisperer Show.
All right. And tune in again next week for another edition of the House Whisperer Show with professional home inspector Jack Milne. If you want to listen to previous programs or if you have any questions, visit thehousewhisperershow.com. This is Barry Reisman, and thank you very much for listening to WWDB.